My dad disowned my sister and he is dying. How do I convince her to let him go? Backstory, my family used to be very close, but that changed in 2003 when my dad, 55M, found out that my mother, 54F, was cheating on him with John, 54M, my father's childhood best friend and best man at their wedding. He kept begging her to stay and work things out, but my mother left him for John, and they eventually divorced. My mother married John 5 months later. It really surprised us when my twin sister, Sarah, 27F, decided to live with our mother after the divorce. She had always been a daddy's girl, spoiled by him more than the rest of us, and was basically his shadow. Back then, I, 27M, and Sarah were the only ones who still lived with our dad. We have 4 other brothers. I chose to stay with dad, and Sarah chose to live with mom, visiting us on weekends. I rarely went to mom's house. To say that the divorce and Sarah's decision to stay with mom messed up my father is an understatement. He acted like it was fine in front of us, but every weekend for the year after the divorce, I could hear him cry himself to sleep. The relationship between Sarah and our father didn't really change after the divorce. He began to spoil her a little more than normal and continued to be the typical super dad, showing up to all parent-teacher meetings, soccer matches, ballet classes, and other events. He was always the most present dad imaginable. Things started changing when Sarah suddenly changed her mind about medical school. Our father is a surgeon. She always maintained that she wanted to follow in his footsteps, but Mom and John forced her to change her career choice to become a lawyer. Both Mom and John are lawyers. During her studies, John started mentoring her and they became quite close. After she completed her degree, he hired her at his law firm. Moving on, Sarah married in 2017. My dad was extremely happy for Sarah's wedding and handed her a blank check for her dream wedding. He did this for all of us. He really loved weddings. In Sarah's case, he was especially excited because she is his only daughter. I always remembered him talking about seeing her walk down the aisle. At every wedding we attended, he would always tell her that he wanted to walk his little girl down the aisle one day. Sarah announced one day before the wedding that both her father and John would walk her down the aisle. Well, Dad is by far the most non-confrontational man on this earth, and she expected him to just suck it up. He didn't do that, and they got into a massive fight, the first time I saw him get mad. In the end, he didn't attend the wedding, and John ended up walking her down the aisle. The fallout was huge. After the wedding, Dad and his side of the family basically disowned Sarah, and their relationship vanished. She attempted to reach out to Dad and make amends multiple times, but he simply refused to talk to or hear about her. We expected him to change his mind when Sarah gave birth in 2018, but he did not even want to meet her kids. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer earlier this year. Sadly, the treatment did not work, and he has now stopped treatment. Despite this, he still does not want to see her again, and she does not understand that. I am really close to my dad, and the last several weeks have been quite difficult for me. How do I convince her to let him go? Update. Some people requested an update. However, life isn't always about happy endings. This is a sad ending. A week after I posted the original story, my father's health declined quickly. He passed away exactly 1 month ago. Although it was heartbreaking for us, he deserved to rest because he was exhausted. It wasn't pretty. I never imagined it would be so heartbreaking. He was in a lot of pain. In the end, he was aware enough to say his farewells to me and my elder brothers. Hearing him speak was one of the most painful and wonderful moments of my life. His words to me meant a lot. I won't disclose precisely what he said because I believe it's too personal. He also said farewell to my daughters, 11 months and 2 years old, just like he did when I was a kid. He kissed them on the forehead, told them to be good girls, and said he loved them. It's something I'll never forget. It hurts like hell that they are too young to understand what happened. They still ask about Grandpa, and every time I try to explain to them that he isn't coming back, they don't seem to understand. How can I blame them? I'm only 27 years old, and I honestly don't understand it myself. I thought I would have a lot more years with my dad, and it doesn't seem fair at all. The worst part was my sister Sarah. Our father passed away without speaking to her. I tried my best to talk to him about her, but he simply didn't want to speak with her. Sarah became increasingly desperate, and when he passed away, it was expected, but she was in denial. It hit her hard. His funeral was lovely, and many people talked about him. It was nice to see Sarah's father again, since the night before her wedding. She didn't recognize him. He was extremely skinny. He was always a little bit overweight, the famous dad bod, but he had lost a lot of weight due to cancer. She broke down in tears a lot throughout the burial. Mom and John tried to attend too, but my uncles had to push them out. Damn good riddance. Dad's went as we thought it would. Dad's family came from old money, petrochemical products, so he always had a lot of money. He left a little bit of money and assets evenly split to all his kids, including Sarah. He left a family trust, which was a lot of money, for all his grandkids, including Sarah's kids, whom he never met. It was truly expected. My dad never cared about money that much. He wanted us to be comfortable and guarantee that his grandkids all had something to support them. One of Dad's greatest hobbies was photography. He was quite an aficionado, and the topic of his pictures was pretty much our family. We had a lot of images from us growing up. He gave each of us an album, and behind each photo, he had written something, where it was taken and a few words. To be really honest, I was shocked by this. He must have done this a long time before his death. It was a very considerate goodbye gift, as was usual of Dad. Sarah did not receive a letter, and nothing was written behind the photos in her album. When she found out about it, she had a mental breakdown. Regret was eating her alive, and still is. She was hospitalized and stayed for a full week. She is doing a little better now, getting a little bit better every day. Her husband and I are very confident that she will recover. She is sleeping and eating normally now. She still starts crying at random times throughout the day, but things are getting better. At least, that is what I tell myself. Which brings us to last week, when my wife and I found out we're expecting again. It was not planned or anything. My wife switched her birth control pills last month and had gone a week without taking them. She is still very early in her pregnancy, so we haven't told anyone yet. The truth is that I'm very upset that my future child will not be able to meet my father. I'm pissed, and it doesn't seem fair at all. I'm angry and afraid because my father was supposed to guide me through the entire fatherhood process, and he was teaching me a lot of things with my kids. I'm terrified of doing this without him, and I'm terrified of not being a good father like he was to me because my children deserve it. This is it, fellas. This entire situation could be a lot better. I play the what-if scenario in my head each day, but it doesn't change anything. This is a truly sad ending. It does not appear fair at all, but that is the nature of life. It is never fair. I'd like to thank everyone who offered me advice and everyone who reached out and offered their help in the chat and DMs. I was really lonely at the time, and still am, so it meant a lot to me. Thanks Reddit.